Hey there. Okay, here is a tutorial on going from Photoshop to Illustrator and from Illustrator to Photoshop back and forth, where we can create something in Illustrator and bring it into Photoshop. For example, I'm going to go into Illustrator and create like a simple rectangle. For this rectangle, I don't want to have a fill, so I'm going to go into the swatch here that's on top and just click on this red diagonal button down below. That'll just give me a rectangle with a black outline, because you can see there's a black outline swatch down below this swatch that has the slash now. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle on screen. So the easiest way to go from Illustrator to Photoshop is just grab that rectangle, have both applications open, and you're clicking on the rectangle in Illustrator and you're dragging and dropping it into Photoshop. And once you do that, you're going to see it here in Photoshop. Just double click and there it is in Photoshop. So I basically took the curves from Illustrator and I dragged and dropped them directly into Photoshop. Now when you do it this way, you're going to get a new layer in Photoshop, and that layer for that rectangle is going to be called a vector smart object. Basically what this means is when you drag the rectangle into Photoshop, it kept it as vectors, it kept it as a curve. And if you double click on this vector smart object layer in Photoshop, it's actually going to open that vector back up into Illustrator so you can modify it and change it. So if I go into Illustrator, let's say, make it smaller, hit save, go back into Photoshop, it's going to update. And that's the nice thing about a vector smart object or a smart object in general. The smart object is adjustable. You can change the smart object in the original Illustrator file and it will update in Photoshop. So that's one way to bring something from Photoshop into, or something from Illustrator into Photoshop. Another way to do it is to just do a cut and paste. So this time, instead of a rectangle, I'll draw a circle or ellipse. I'm going to hit Command C or Control C if you're on a PC, and then hit Command V. And when I cut and paste, I actually get some options this time. So I can decide if I want to have a smart object. The default you'll see here is pixels, or I can do a path or a shape layer, and each one of those has some distinct properties. The one that's really different from all three is the pixels option, because when you cut and paste from Illustrator to Photoshop and pick pixels, it will paste it as pixels. So I'm going to keep it as pixels, and many times you just want pixels anyways. I'm going to hit OK. Again, you have this like transform selection around the circle that you pasted in. So I'm just going to double click on that, and there it is. And again, it goes into its own layer, just like that. And then the final way to import something would be to save your Illustrator file. So do a save as. I'm going to call it, let's say, shapes. Hit save. When the dialog for options opens up, just hit OK. Go to File, and what I should say is go into Photoshop, and to import it from that save file that you saved from Illustrator, just go to File and pick the Place Embedded option, and then find that thing that you just saved, which is which I thought was the desktop. So let's go back. I'm going to go back into Illustrator, save it again, and click on desktop to make sure I'm saving the shapes file from Illustrator. And by the way, the default file format for the Illustrator file is .ai. So then I hit save, hit OK. I'm going to go back into Photoshop, go to File, Place Embedded, go to my desktop where I saved that Illustrator file. Click on shapes.ai, hit place, hit OK, and there you go. So it pasted right in. So again, it's coming in as this type of smart object. So if I double click that, it's going to open up in Illustrator to let me adjust. The only way to get the object into Photoshop from Illustrator just as pixels is to cut and paste and pick that pixel option. Otherwise, with these smart objects, if I want to convert them to pixels, I have to right click on the layer. Make sure you right click on like the layer name and not the actual icon representing the objects on that layer, and then I'm going to find the option rasterize layer, and now those vectors from Illustrator that I imported into Photoshop are now pixels as well, and you can see that little smart layer icon went away. So anyways, this is the process. I hope this is understandable. Please watch, and I will talk to you later. Have a good night. Thank you.